Hebrews 1:8 says, "But unto the Son he says, Your throne, O God, is forever and ever. A scepter of righteousness is the scepter of your kingdom." This verse speaks to the eternal nature of Christ's authority and how it is upheld by righteousness. But when I look at it personally, it reveals something powerful about how authority is established and maintained in my own life. The throne of Christ is eternal, but for the throne in my life, my ability to rule and govern myself to last, it must be built on righteousness. The scepter, which represents authority to rule, is described as a scepter of righteousness. In other words, righteousness is the foundation and the power by which all true authority is exercised. The imagery here is profound. The throne symbolizes a place of rulership, governance, and supremacy, a seat of power. The scepter is the tool or rod by which that authority is expressed. Together they represent not just leadership, but the means by which dominion is maintained. Proverbs 16:12 reinforces this truth. It is an abomination for kings to commit wickedness, for the throne is established by righteousness. So if the throne in my life is to stand firm, if I am to have mastery over myself, it must be established and sustained by righteousness. This is where the real struggle lies, within me, within us. There are two forces at war: the carnal man, which I see as Esau within, constantly craves the immediate gratification of the flesh, food, comfort, entertainment, and the fleeting pleasures of this world. Esau sold his birthright for a bowl of stew, a vivid picture of the carnal man prioritizing temporary satisfaction over eternal value. Then there's the spiritual man, the Jacob in me, in us, which represents the divine nature of Christ, hungry for the eternal, the bread of life, the hidden manna, the spiritual nourishment that comes only from God. This part of me longs for deeper communion with God and sustenance that feeds my spirit. This battle is not new. The Israelites experienced it in the wilderness. God gave them manna from heaven, spiritual food provided directly by His hand. Yet they grew restless and began longing for the foods of Egypt, the leeks, the onions, and meat they had left behind. What they failed to see was that the manna wasn't just about sustenance. It was about connection. It was about trust and dependence on God. The manna came directly from His hand, and that connection elevated it beyond physical nourishment. It was a symbol of God's intimate care and provision. In my own life, I've experienced this heavenly manna, the moments of revelation, joy, and communion with God that are so fulfilling, it feels like nothing else matters. When I receive this spiritual food, it's not just the content of the revelation that sustains me, it's the fact that it comes directly from Him. The connection to God, the intimacy of knowing it's from His hand, transforms it into something priceless. Even the simplest word from Him can lift me to new heights because it carries His presence, His voice, and His love. But then comes the pull of Egypt, the pull of the carnal man, the Esau within. It's that voice that whispers, just one taste, or just one moment. It could be breaking a fast for a fleeting bite, watching a video for temporary distraction, or indulging in anything that draws me back to the earthly, to the fleshly. This pull is persistent, and it's the same pull the Israelites faced when they remembered the food of Egypt. They began to yearn for the familiar, for the comforts of the flesh, even though they had seen God's miracle and provision firsthand. For me, this pull is most dangerous when I allow it to weaken my commitment to righteousness. When I give in, I forfeit something far greater than the immediate pleasure I gain. I lose righteousness, and with it, I lose the authority to rule and reign in my own life. The throne is no longer established because it can only stand on righteousness. The scepter, the rod of authority, slips from my grasp because it is a scepter of righteousness. Without righteousness, I cannot govern myself. I cannot master my thoughts, my desires, or my flesh. So what does this mean practically? It means that the throne in my life, the place where I exercise authority over my thoughts, emotions, and actions, can only be established and maintained when I walk in righteousness. Righteousness isn't just about doing what's right. It's about being in right standing with God. It's about aligning my life with His Word and allowing Jesus, the Word made flesh, to rule and reign in me. When Christ is on the throne of my heart, His Word governs me. His truth becomes my standard, and His Spirit empowers me to live it out. But when I give in to the flesh, when I prioritize the temporal over the eternal, I lose that righteousness. It's not just about breaking a fast or watching a video. It's about what those choices represent. They represent a shift in my allegiance, a moment where I let the Esau in me take the throne instead of Christ. And when that happens, I lose the ability to govern myself. The throne collapses because it's no longer established on righteousness. The scepter is forfeited because it is a scepter of righteousness. Hebrews 1:8 calls us to examine who or what is ruling on the throne of our heart. Are we allowing Christ to rule with His scepter of righteousness? Or are we letting the carnal man, the Esau, in us take over? True mastery, true authority over our flesh, our desires, and our actions can only come when we surrender fully to Christ and allow His righteousness to govern us. This means making daily choices that align with His Word. It means choosing the spiritual over the carnal, the eternal over the temporary, the hidden manna over the stew. It means resisting the pull of Egypt and trusting that the manna God provides is not only sufficient, but infinitely better. And it means understanding that righteousness isn't just a standard. It's the very foundation upon which the throne of our lives is built. Without righteousness, there is no throne. Without righteousness, there is no scepter. Without righteousness, there is no mastery. But when we walk in righteousness, when we allow Christ to reign in us, we hold the scepter of righteousness. We rule and reign, not because of our strength, but because of His. The throne is established, the scepter is firm, and the carnal man has no power. Through righteousness, we are able to govern ourselves, to master our flesh, and to walk in the authority God has called us to.